Senator, you were saying one of the things you wanted to do was, as you saw from your Lola, allow the whole value chain to be enjoyed by the farmers. And
yes.
you're doing a number of interesting things in your farm school. I was wondering if there's anything that the agricultural colleges can learn from your experience, because I've heard that the enrollment in agriculture colleges around the country has actually been declining. And I suppose this is also part of what you're trying to do, is to
Raise the income.
But maybe you can talk about some of your specific
Yes.
things here.
Like, for example, the young people are not going into farming because their parents are not encouraging
Mahirap ang buhay.
them,
Yeah.
because they're not earning a lot.
Yeah.
So the secret is to bring up their income and maybe to mechanize, because young people do not want to plant with their hands anymore. But we don't need to plant with our hands. We have transplanter, we have harvester, we have tractor.
Yeah.
So the secret really to competitiveness is mechanization,
Okay.
and to attract the young people to farming. And
Right.
at the same time, that will increase also income.
Right.
Let's say, for example, in rice, kasi that's the most popular crop in the Philippines. Vietnam produces rice at 6 pesos per kilo of palay. Tayo 12.
Mahal.
And we studied the cost difference. 350 is labor. That means we're not
Oh,
mechanized.
okay.
And then 250 is productivity. That means our seeds are not the good ones.
Okay.
So that is what we solved in the Rice Competitiveness Enhancement Fund. We gave a lot of money for mechanization.
Okay.
But machines can only be given to, it cannot be given to individual farmers. It has to be given to an association of farmers or cooperative,
Cooperatives.
because it's very expensive. And a single farmer who owns 2 hectares cannot justify a machine.
Right.
It has to be shared
Right.
by more people. So they have to have an association so that
Right.
they can have machines that
Right.
they can operate together. And at the same time, I asked Philmec to give them dryer and milling machine as well, para yung end product nila is not palay but rice.
Right.
And since they are in a co-op, they have economies of scale. They can talk to a retailer and supply them the rice themselves, not in anymore pass through a middleman.
Right.
So mas malaki ang kita ng farmer, dadating pa sa consumer na mura yung rice.
Right. Senator, is there a valid argument to make that maybe we should look at other crops where the Philippines can enjoy a comparative advantage? Kasi you mentioned there's so many opportunities in coffee, cacao,
Yes.
in many other aspects of agriculture.
Yeah.
Are we just being foolhardy, focusing on rice, or the president said we cannot ignore it because it's strategic? But
Yeah.
what's your point of view there now?
Rice is important because
Okay.
it's a political crop.
Okay.
When the rice prices go up,
Okay.
then the president becomes unpopular. Di ba?
Opo.
The only time President Duterte was unpopular was in 2018 when the rice prices reached 60 pesos per kilo. So
Opo.
it's very important.
Okay.
But there are other things like coconut.
Right.
When you produce coconut, you don't only produce coconut. You produce coffee,
Yeah.
you produce cacao.
I heard
you
pepper also. Is that
dairy.
true?
What?
Pepper also? I mean, in between
but it's not, the volume really is
Oh, I see.
rice, coconut, and yan yung
Opo.
corn,
Opo.
because it's the feeds of the livestock.
Right.
And then yan ang malalaking product natin. Banana, which is private sector led.
Right.
Hindi tayo, although may sickness ang banana ngayon.
Opo.
And what else? Coconut, livestock.
Yeah, you were saying dairy earlier.
Dairy,
Yeah.
yes. And of course, fishing. Kasi if you look at the quantities, 52% ang crops, 33% ang livestock, poultry, dairy, 15% ang fisheries sa mix ng ating agricultural products.
So, the president himself has taken on the agriculture portfolio. And recently in the news, you've had some heated exchanges with some of the DA, but I think in particular to importing fertilizers, I believe, or something like that. But
because one of the things I have done here in Las Piñas since 2000,
Organic.
I established 67 composting machine, which process our kitchen and garden waste. You know, 50% of our waste are kitchen and garden waste, and they can be converted into organic fertilizer. So I was telling them, if you are increasing your importation of chemical fertilizer, you give a portion to giving out composting machines so that we can produce our own fertilizer from composting, and at the same time we're making our cities clean. We spend less for waste management, and then meron pang fertilizer at the same time. Oo. And fertilizer is very good for the soil, organic fertilizer, because 38% of the soil of the Philippines are degraded. And I asked the UN FAO, how do you solve the degradation of the soil? Their answer is, compost all your waste and bring them back to the soil. So ngayon, I'm telling them, why are you importing a lot of chemical fertilizer when in the long run it's bad for the soil kasi nagkoko siya ng acidity and then nasisira ang soil dyan. When in fact, if you buy a composting machine, and one composting machine produces 1 ton of organic fertilizer every month. So you produce 12 tons a year for one composting machine. And the fertilizer now is 50 pesos per kilo. So that's 120,000 kilos times 50. That's almost the cost of one composting machine. So may payback period kang 1 year, wala kang lugi. So why not buy a lot of composting machine and give it out to the LGUs, the farmers, so that they can produce their own organic fertilizer. And Villar has para siyang mixture that can take the place of urea. Oo, na yung lang yung di ba pag tinanggal mo yung pala, yung stems, yun, mixed with animal manure that can be used for rice.
But generally, are you happy with the way the Department of Agriculture is going about its work, or
no,
may kulang pa?
During the budget hearing, I asked them to transfer 3 billion from the 15 billion to distribution of composting machine, and they agreed. They agreed. And one of my question also is, why are they importing hybrid seedlings when the farmers can produce certified inbred seeds through the help of Villar? And usually, yung hybrid seedlings for the rich yan, kasi para yan maging productive, malaki ang inputs, which the small farmers cannot afford. So, why not liitan yung hybrid and lakihan yung inbred? Para mas maraming farmer mabigyan, and they like it because less ang inputs and very sa Pilipinas. Kasi ang gumawa niyan, Villar. And at the same time, if you buy from the cooperative of seed growers, of farmers, you're giving income to them, and at the same time helping the small farmers. So yun ang 2 policy questions ko sa kanila.
Do you think the President should continue acting as DA Secretary, or do you think it's time now to, since he's given it highlight already, napapanahon na po ba na tingin nyo there's a full-time Agri-Secretary?
I don't want to preempt him. Baka gusto niya, siya muna, mag-aaral siya, tapos tsaka niya ibibigay to somebody. But ako, if ever it will be given to somebody, hindi yung pinakamarunong, kundi yung may heart sa farmer. You might be the most intelligent person, but if you don't have any heart for the farmers, you will fail. Kasi, alam mo, napansin ko lang sa ating DA, wala yung developmental point of view. Parang pag tinignan mo budget nila, PS, overhead, research, and regulatory, naiiwan yung developmental. So I thought that without that, we cannot improve as an agricultural country. So we have to emphasize that developmental portion of the work.
Right,
So I was telling them that, I never question your PS overhead, regulatory, and inyong research.
Alright.
Sinasabi ko lang sa research, pag magre-research kayo, dapat may practical application to the lives of people.
Right.
And then, yung developmental nyo, I want to know your developmental projects.
Right.
Para tingin ko, yun ang makakatulong talaga para mag-improve ang agriculture to our country. I was telling them, it's very important that we have food security because as a people, we can forgo everything, but
Except
we
food.
cannot forgo food. We cannot live without food. And if we don't help the farmers become middle class so that they will stay in farming, then they will not produce our food, we'll go hungry.
Right. Senator, we'd like to pick up on that, but we'll have to take another quick break. This is SMNI's Business and Politics. We're talking to Senator Cynthia Villar. We'll be right back.